Hey everyone, thanks for having me back. This is a fun one. I did this panel last year, and I think it's always fun to talk to people who have to put their money where their mouth is, and hear, hopefully cut a little bit through the hype of what we've been hearing. So I'm going to start there, and we're going to go, just if you guys don't mind introducing yourself at the beginning, but I'm going to start by asking you if your lives are anything like mine is, and I know they are. I'm constantly deluged by PR people telling me to meet the next big AI startup or the deep learning startup of X. I'm wondering how you decipher kind of who's doing real things and how you cut through the hype. Do you have any tricks of the trade? So Frank, let's start with you.
So I'll start. My name is Frank Chen. I'm a partner at Andreessen Horowitz. So I would say about 12 months ago, every single pitch started saying machine learning or artificial intelligence. So flash forward like 5 or 6 years ago, the same thing was true for mobile and cloud, right? I'm a mobile first and all my data is in the cloud. And now it's basically, I'm machine learning. It's gotten to the point where it's a little overhyped, which is some of the CEOs don't even really know what that means. You ask them, hey, what machine learning algorithms are you using? And they'll be like, the good ones? So obviously you have to sort of sift the wheat from the chaff, and we've developed a lot of expertise internally, and then we rely on people in the community to help us understand what's real and what's not. On the continuum between tech and feature and product and company, right, on that spectrum, we're always trying to figure out, all right, where is this thing?
Matt, what do you think?
Hi, I'm Matt Turck. I'm a partner at FirstMark, which is in New York, so I'm East Coast represent. We have 3, and I'm French. The best thing the East Coast could send was a Frenchman. But so we have 3 West Coast VC firms, and I'm here to say in part that one of the really cool things about the AI ecosystem is that it's truly global. So it's very vibrant in New York. It's very vibrant in Montreal. From everything I hear, it's vibrant in London. It's vibrant in Paris. So it's a very cool thing. So now to your question. So yeah, we're absolutely in that part of the cycle. Where all of us, like every day, we get like the next bot, the next something.ai, and we see not to them, but a lot of people coming out of Harvard Business School saying, hey, we're going to do something with AI. It's going to be awesome. Here's my CTO. He or she did some machine learning at some point, and it's going to be great, right? But the problem with the hype is that it's created this impression that everything is easy now, and that's exactly the opposite. The stuff is really, really hard in practice. So what you'll hear every single VC say always when trying to find the next venture is that it's all about the team. And that's the reason why it's a cliche. It's because it's true, but in the world of AI, it's particularly true. So what you want is an intersection of 3 types of categories. One, you want people that have essentially PhD level knowledge, and in AI, deep learning, machine learning, all the things. There's just not a lot of people running around having that. So that's one. 2, you want people that can build product. So it's one thing to be very research-oriented, but you need people who can build an actual product on top. So you need engineers who understand machine learning, and machine learning people who understand engineering. 3, you want people who are deeply commercially oriented, who understand that it's not about building tech for the sake of tech, but it's actually about helping customers. And when you think about it, the intersection of, in this Venn diagram is very, very narrow, and that's a big filter.
It sounds like 4 also, if they're New York-based and French, it gives them a leg up. It sounds like. Arielle, go. What's your take on kind of cutting through the hype? Are there any specific questions where you've been able to catch out a charlatan?
Yeah, there are definitely questions, but also we built relationships with professors at Stanford or companies in our portfolio that are actually using AI to help us suss out how legit their claims are.
Any other tricks of the trade, Bradford? Yeah.
So, coming from a background of building AI startups for about 16 years and starting DTC about 6 years ago, initial investing, I think we've basically seen a lot more of the cycle than most people, given that most people have started to really dig into the stuff more recently. I think because of that, we've long since made the investment in really making sure that we're seeing all the awesome teams. So that's an obvious binary filter, right, on team. You got to know the people actually know what they're doing. and that they're a right fit for the problem, right? If somebody wants to solve a computer vision problem, then they should be computer vision people. So that's a clear binary filter. I think the more important thing, actually, given the maturity of the stuff that we see now, is much more, can you find a real business need that you're satiating with AI, and does it make sense why you need AI to solve this problem? Or do you just have a hammer looking for a nail? And I think, by and large, we mostly see hammers looking for nails. And that's not really an interesting venture. So it's actually quite tricky to find, this opportunities where AI really is needed to move the needle, and it's a core thing. And we want this to be like a core, defensible thing. And so it can't be that you're just somewhat optimizing, because machine learning is optimization, so you can optimize most business processes and so on, and most companies should do that. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a great AI-focused business just because you can have some small win. There's some reason why it's really important to the business that's key. And then lastly, we like to always see that you have a business which has proprietary models built on proprietary data. So I don't really have any interest in a business which has really interesting models, like they're using some new state-of-the-art technique, but their data is readily available to anyone else, because as soon as they point out an interesting business direction, there's tons of other teams which are just as smart that will go after it. So I want to see some entrenched position that they get into over time where their data is proprietary and the models on top of it are therefore increasingly proprietary, and you get this virtuous cycle.
And how often are you meeting founders who have ideas that are really interesting, but that you worry the technology won't match up with your investment horizon?
Meaning that it will take too long to build?
It'll take too long.
A lot. I think that happens a lot with the hammer looking for nail thing, where people want to invest in the tech for way too long and they don't understand how you have to decompose the problem and figure out what are the clever ways you get something to market quickly that's valuable for people, and then increasingly invest it over time. People try to get hardcore, model building R&D stuff done for 2-3 years straight without going to market, and that just scares the shit out of me, right?
How much are you all worried about the next great startups not startups at all, that they're going to be homegrown within these large, dominating internet companies called Google and Facebook? Matt, why don't you start? How worried are you?
I'm pretty worried, but not entirely worried. So it's a very interesting question because it's a very unique thing, I guess, in the history of the internet. If you rewind to the 90s and aughts of the 2000s, you were in a situation of almost classic disruption, where you had, on the one hand, the large incumbents were not technology companies, were paralyzed by innovators' dilemma and all the things, sort of begging for disruption type thing, at least in retrospect. And on the other side, you had the little startups that had a very small chance of surviving, but were fundamentally tech companies that got it and could disrupt, right? So that was then. Fast forward to now, you have a very different set of incumbents if you're a young AI startup, which is that you're facing not just Google and Facebook, but Uber and Amazon and Salesforce and all these companies that fundamentally, most of them were startups not that long ago. They're all technology natives. They're all aggressive. They all can acquire whatever company they want. They can hire whoever they want, and they have all the data in the world, right? So it is daunting. At the same time, there's plenty of things you can do as a startup to navigate away from those people. And that's a long conversation, but to make it short, one, I think that vertical positioning is safer than horizontal. Everything else would be. So focusing on an industry as opposed to trying to solve a horizontal problem. Two, enterprise is safer than consumer. So all the Googles and Facebooks, they all want to solve large horizontal consumer problems, image recognition, language translation, all the things. So it's harder to do that as a startup. And three, it's typically easier to focus on a very small thing, a tool, rather than trying to build a platform. Hopefully, obviously everyone at the end of the day wants to be a platform, but you have to be a tool first. So enterprise and tool.
Right, but this relates very much to the question of kind of how AI startups are going to scale, and what sort of advice you give them. So maybe Arielle, could you take that? How much optimism do you have that even a startup that's focused very much on a vertical solution is going to be able to scale?
Yeah, I definitely think it's possible. I don't know if I'd recommend going into like serving ads or product recommendations, because I think Amazon and Facebook and those examples have a lot of money, a lot of talent, and a lot of data. But I definitely think there are tons of use cases out there where no one has amassed a large proprietary data set yet.
So where do you see opportunities that you think others aren't?
I think actually in like the arts, like I don't think a lot of people, Netflix with video content, but not necessarily, Spotify's recommending certain music to me, but an algorithm could potentially create music personalized to my taste, or I think there's a lot in the like aesthetics space that people aren't really tackling yet.
Okay.
One way I think about this is I kind of think of AI as very analogously to the SQL database. So it's the mid-1960s. We've just invented SQL. IBM invented it. Oracle commercialized it. And we're kind of wringing our hands about whether there's going to be any opportunity now that Oracle commercialized a SQL database. Well, as it turns out, if you look at the market cap of Oracle and then think of all of the SQL applications that grew up out of this fundamental technology, right? You think of Great Plains, and you think of Salesforce, and then you think of SAP, and you think of SuccessFactors. All of these applications sort of came after that, sitting on top of this foundation. And so I think there's plenty of opportunity to create very, very valuable companies sitting on top of the core AI platform. Now, the question is whether there's going to be a SQL or Microsoft-like company that can control the fundamental layer, and that looks like maybe not as much of an opportunity. That probably will go to the public cloud providers, and I kind of think of that as it's going to be enormous revenue, but very low margin, and so that's not a great place for a startup to insert itself. Where you want a startup to insert itself is solve a complete business problem, right? Up and down that stack. Sit on top of TensorFlow, figure out how you're going to get the data, figure out how you're going to get a learning loop on top of that data, and then create a user experience that really solves a business problem. There's going to be plenty of room for that. So the analogy would be, Mark Benioff would have been pretty surprised if you had said, we invented SQL. There's no opportunity for a CRMS system. There's going to be plenty of opportunity.
Okay. How do you think about valuations in this space? Lots of...
Too high.
Is there a good deal to be had in the AI space, or how do you think about appropriate valuations? Bradford, will you take that one?
Yeah, they're kind of high, and I think especially, like I was saying earlier, there's actually a lot of really good teams, and I think people are way overpricing teams. So, you see a lot of good teams, and then you see these guys that really don't have anything yet, and their valuation is kind of where they should be if they have a couple customers and maybe $1 million in revenue. And I think that's a huge problem. The whole stacked team, here's my team on the deck, and it's all Stanford PhDs and stuff, and it's yeah, that's great, I see it all the time, but you guys barely have anything. And so I'm not going to value at $20 million.
Well, I thought Steve Jurvetson had a great line. I think it was $10 million per person, including the receptionist earlier, which I thought was pretty good.
Yeah, the acqui-hires are definitely going for $5 to $10 million a head. It's unbelievable.
That's great.
I think to Frank's point before about the mobile kind of revolution, people were doing something similar with iOS developers and Android developers, back in the day, I guess, 5 to 7 years ago. If you had a really good iOS developer, you were potentially going to be acqui-hired company. So I think we can look back to those valuations and see how these valuations might be inflated.
Yeah. And Matt.
Just quickly, I mean, it's joke aside, it's tricky, right, to invest in AI startups for us. So, in the world of venture capital, eventually we all align. We all, entrepreneurs and VCs, we all want, the large outcome. But there's this period at the beginning of venture of a couple of years where interests are mostly aligned, but a little, divergent from time to time, which is that if an acquisition happens early, it tends to be great for founders, not so great for VCs because of the math of how venture capital funds make money, which is a whole different discussion. But that's the problem of AI, right? A lot of those companies get acquired so quickly. And of course, if you're and you get a great offer where you're going to make money, and then you're going to be in a great company with all the data in the world, and that's going to provide you very comfortable situation. Of course, it's very tempting to join the firm. So from my perspective, it's a problem.
And Frank, did you want to add?
I was just going to say, every time there's been a new platform, there's been a run on talent on that platform, right? So mainframes and COBOL, SQL and SQL databases, client server and Power Builder, sort of the mobile, there was a run on Objective-C programmers. Like, Objective-C? Like, seriously? And so every new platform creates a temporary bubble. I would say the AI bubble has been particularly fierce, but I think being a techno-optimist and sort of we're in this for the long term, we're going to see cooling. And look, companies have always been and always will be ultimately valued on free cash flow at the end of the day. And these unsustainable this temporary phenomenon will pass because eventually we're going to get back to discounted cash flow.
But are you calling the peak then? Do you think we're at like peak AI euphoria?
I'll tell you when we do the next term sheet. I don't know if we're at a peak yet. I think there's so much enthusiasm right now around AI because I think everybody, and especially the people in this room, know that this is one of the big transformations in our generation. Right, so this peak might be a little more hot and sustained than the last peak, right? So compare it to what's the going price of an Objective-C or Android programmer? How long did that last? Like, how irrational was that? This one might burn a little longer because the transformation opportunity is bigger.
Okay. I want to talk sectors. So we've talked a little bit earlier about healthcare. We just had agriculture. At the risk of really annoying some of your predecessor panelists, what do you think are the areas that are overhyped when it comes to AI and the near-term transformations, and what do you think is underhyped, and where are people not looking? Although I know you don't want to share your secrets, but Bradford, please do.
Okay, I'll go. So first of all, I completely agree earlier that like the platform stuff is totally overhyped. We've invested in many of these over the years. I'm proud to say that I didn't necessarily invest in any of them, but basically the machine learning SaaS kind of stuff, like the low-level tools stuff, way overhyped. None of it works. It's all been sort of acqui-hires or wind-downs. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I'm not going to go into the details, but that's probably the biggest area that I wouldn't touch. The ones that I think are really interesting, finance, like deep understanding of finance and applications in finance. There's not really that many people working on this. It's not the most sexy in the valley. People don't tend to care about finance. In fact, they look at it with some scorn oftentimes. So I think that's an interesting one.
And what area of finance specifically?
I would say I like banking, insurance, and real estate a lot. And like the sort of underlying, like deep underpinnings of it. Not so much like the veneer and recommending products and stuff, but more the deep underpinnings of it. And then computational healthcare of all kinds is super exciting. So like there's tons going on with drug discovery and diagnosis problems, manufacturing of industrial chemicals. Basically anything that's like computational biology or computational healthcare is super cool. And then the last one I'd say is applications in computer vision. This kind of goes back to your earlier point where everyone knows computer vision is a big deal, and we're finally like pretty reasonable at it, whereas we weren't able to do a good job for a really long time. But a lot of the talent has been snarfed into Google, Facebook, Baidu, etc., and they're all working on the same stuff, which is like, which kind of cat is it in this video frame, right? And I think that but if you look at computer vision problems outside that kind of consumer internet domain, like we saw earlier, the ag tech company, right? There's a lot of cool ag tech companies. The Bloomberg Beta guys have invested in this company, Orbital Insights, which is really doing terrific. And they're dealing with financial predictions and so on top of satellite imagery. Look at all the medical diagnosis that's possible using computer vision on medical imagery. So I think applications in computer vision that could cut across, many different verticals are exciting. But I agree with earlier, like I would verticalize it and not try to do computer vision across many things, but like make a tool for diagnosing something and sell it into the healthcare workflow.
Okay. Arielle, overhyped and underhyped.
I totally agree with the like ML as a service, like your data plus our model. Seeing a lot of companies and, it's unclear if their sales pitch will resonate with customers or if they're, providing all that much value. But I still think this area is underhyped. I think like the amount of audio data that we've amassed and like customer service is still terrible is like a mystery to me. So I think that's still a huge opportunity.
Have you found a company in that space yet?
Looking, so if you see around, you can tell me that.
Matt.
So all of the above, very much agree. Overhyped. In a way, sort of everything, right? I mean, what's been amazing is that you often see when you have a new industry that you start with a lot of sexy areas and then you gradually go into unsexy. And it seems that AI very quickly did you find AI in everything. So there's AI in finance, AI in healthcare, AI in computational biology, AI, like everything. It's sort of this Cambrian explosion across the board. So everything at this stage of the hype cycle, I think, is on the higher part of the hype. Bots, I guess not to become them. I think bots eventually are a great thing and will happen. I think we're very far from fully automated bots for all things. I think I'm very bullish on specialized bots, and I'm investing in a company, Nexia, which is not a bot, but which is a specialized service for calendaring. And in terms of underhyped, then the least sexy areas that are most unsexy areas that are remaining. Anything around, I don't know, industrial image recognition, supply chain management, back office automation, all the things I think are great.
And Frank, the last.
The way I think about it is there's a basket of products and services that if you sort of put prices for those products and services on a graph over time, there's a collapse. And it's almost everything that you see in this room. It's clothes and tables and shoes and chairs. Those things have collapsed. Then there's this basket of products and services whose prices have not collapsed. So that's healthcare, that's education, that's government services, that's construction, right? And those, I think, are the big opportunities because those are the big pools of money where software has not eaten that world yet. And it's not AI in particular, but it's sort of AI and software. So let's go eat those big baskets where the prices have stayed stubbornly high over the decades.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like it's more rational exuberance from you all rather than irrational exuberance. And thank you so much for your time. Exciting times ahead.